Origin Su-22s, and this is how US F-14 fighter smoked Sukhoi Su-22s. Is that good? Is that bad? I have no idea. So what are Su-22s? Let me guess. It's like one of the planes from 60s, 70s or something. An F-14, Tomcat? Right, yeah. As far as I remember, F-14 is just like another version of F-111, right? What is Century series? What is it called? Like really old planes, right? Is that the case? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case, right? And I think it came out of that program. I don't know what similarities there from both planes, but yeah, F-14 is like where they like basically went back to those numberings or something, right? From 100s to back to F-14, then F-15, then F-16 basically came after it. Now F-14, I'm guessing is good enough, right? Not good enough compared to F-15s, obviously, because when F-15 came out, they were supposed to be ridiculously good compared to F-14, because they assume MiG-25s were like this kind of like badass planes that they were assuming, and they created more badass than that, which was F-15. So compared to Su-22s, how good was F-14? I don't know. But I'm guessing it's a big achievement since the title is the video. This was a channel task and purpose, obviously. One of the recent videos, 11 days old. So something happened recently there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's do it. Remember, we'll flag my Rickson, don't forget to subscribe. So that way I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the Rickson, there's a link in the description or in the end of the video end card. And yeah, let's do it.
How did two American F-14 Tomcats get caught in an intense air-to-air dogfight with a pair of Libyan Su-22 fighters? What type of tactics and weapons did they use during their first ever combat engagement? And what were some of the geopolitical factors that the pilots had to consider throughout the battle? Lock onto the like and subscribe button with an air-to-air missile to get defense and military stories twice a week. In August of 1981, newly elected President Reagan authorized the deployment of a large element of the Sixth Fleet into the Mediterranean. The group was led by the U.S. Navy aircraft carriers USS Forrestal and the USS Nimitz. They were ordered to conduct live-fire missile exercises and patrol in a hotly disputed region right off the coast of Libya. On the morning of August 18th, the drills kicked off. Among the American pilots was Commander Henry Kleeman and Lieutenant Muchinsky. They were assigned to fly a combat air patrol, or CAP. The purpose was to cover friendly aircraft and ships that were engaged in the training and show of force drills. They would accomplish this by intercepting any hostile aircraft before they could reach the carriers. The pair was equipped with the world's first ever fourth-generation aircraft. The F-14 was on the bleeding edge of fighter technology. Compared to the F-4 Phantom it was replacing, it had 35% more combat range, tighter turn radius, higher ceilings, but at the same time, the F-14s were still an entirely unproven concept that had never really been tested before in combat, and there was a laundry list of criticisms of the aircraft. Some believed that the new fighter was overly complicated, too expensive at $135 million a pop. The F-14 had a lot to prove to the world. Lieutenant Muchinsky...
135 what? Back then? Oh, that's... So everything's always been costly, right? That's the one thing I'm noticing when it comes to military, regardless of what time it is, things have always been costly.
And the other pilots had to be briefed on the sensitive geopolitical implications of the mission. But before we continue, this content wouldn't be possible without this video's sponsor, AG1, a daily foundational nutrition supplement for folks on the move. AG1 can support all areas of your body's health, immune system, and natural defense. I love how easy it is to incorporate AG1 into my daily routine. Just one scoop packs 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sources ingredients to up my daily intake of nutrients. After taking AG1, I feel much more energy and more calm. It's a great way to cut back on coffee, and I don't think I'm alone. In a study conducted on 35 healthy adults, over 97% felt an energy boost and 94% noted the calming effects. Gluten, dairy, GMO, and lactose-free, AG1 sources the best ingredients and is NSF certified for sports to ensure safety and quality. Head to my link in the description below to get a free 1-year supply of AG vitamin plus K2 plus 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase of AG1. Pilots are one of those jobs in the military where if you mess up at work, you could accidentally spark a war. Here's the sensitive geopolitical intelligence that the pilots would have been briefed on. The Sixth Fleet's mission is to enable freedom of trade and navigation after it was closed off by Libyan dictator Gaddafi in 1973. Gaddafi cut off international access to the Gulf of Sidra, a massive 22,000 square mile section of the Mediterranean. Gaddafi's military forces started policing the area, imposing restrictions on foreign naval vessels and maritime traffic passing through. He declared the demarcation line along the border of the Gulf as, quote, the line of death. If anyone crossed that line, he threatened military action. The Libyan military continued to harass nearby American naval ships stationed in the Mediterranean that they saw as their sovereign territory. However, from President Reagan's point of view, when he took office, he saw Gaddafi's move as a challenge to established international maritime norms, and it raised concerns about freedom of navigation. Concerns about freedom of navigation in international waters. According to the United Nations Convention of Law on the Sea, territorial waters extend 12 nautical miles off of the coast, and so the F-14 pilots had strict orders to not enter that zone. There was also the possible side quest factor here. Newly elected President Ronald Reagan could have been looking for a confrontation to provoke with Libya, since Gaddafi was funding over 30 different organizations that the US considered to be terrorist groups. The US might have been out to send a message that only 2 aircraft carriers can really send. This operation was a major test of whether or not the US Navy could effectively project power over 6,000 miles away. During the planning, the decision had to be made how far American planes could pursue an enemy aircraft if they were fired upon. Reagan's response on this was all the way to the hangar. The rules of engagement under Reagan changed drastically. F-14 pilot Muchinsky said, quote, "The ROEs were very specific until then. We could not shoot without permission. Even if we were fired upon, we still had to call back to the ship, describe the situation, and get permission to shoot. That was just way too long." However, prior to the exercises, we were briefed on new rules of engagement. We could now be pre-cleared by our controllers to engage a specific target, and most importantly, if we were fired upon, we could return fire, no questions asked. The battle group gave the Libyan government a week's notice ahead of time of the exercise in order to ensure that the training missile launches.
Yeah, I like how Reagan's like, I made a movie with a monkey. Are you kidding me? We are not doing this shit, right? That Gaddafi is like flexing on me. I don't care. Like, just change all the rules. This shit is not gonna happen. Enough of this bureaucracy bullshit. We have the best plane. We have the best power. Let's show it.
Were not seen as an act of war. However, this gave Libya plenty of time to station the majority of their forces along the northern coast, and some 600 of Gaddafi's aircraft were placed on high alert status. Gaddafi himself, however, was out of the country on an official visit to Yemen, and so his lower-level military officers were running the show in his absence. The 6th Fleet Battle Group launched sorties consisting of a mix of F-14s, F-4 Phantoms, and the E-2C Hawkeye. Hawkeye is a twin turboprop engine, early warning aircraft that could spot potential threats and targets. It could also relay communications from pilots to commanders on the aircraft carriers, allowing for faster authorization. The Hawkeye almost immediately picked up a massive formation of Libyan Air Force fighters heading straight for the American carriers. The Libyan fighters demanded that all American aircraft and ships leave the area. The American military refused. In response, Libya scrambled every intercept aircraft it owned in an effort to strong-arm the fleet, or at the very least, make the missile exercises less effective. The Hawkeyes then began directing the F-4s and the F-14s to intercept the incoming aircraft and stop them. Lieutenant Muchinsky, call sign Fast Eagle 107, was sent to intercept a pair of Soviet-made MiG-25s, known under the NATO reporting name as Foxbat. The Foxbats at the time were the latest generation of intercept reconnaissance aircraft and posed a serious threat to the carrier group.
I mean, look, man, compared to F-14, Foxbats were really faster compared to like many planes. I mean, look, Foxbat was not some mythical dogfighting thing the US thought of when they made F-15, which made F-15 basically untouchable even today, right? But when it comes to like MiG-25 Foxbats, right, compared to F-14, F-14 is clearly superior in dogfighting. That's what it is, right? Foxbat's not going to do that. It's an interceptor, but it's really fast, right? It can sustain really fast speed. It can do what it's supposed to do, like really well. It might not be the best of its category, but it was like decent enough to be a threat. And it's what's trying to do. It's trying to intercept. He's trying to attack a target, not trying to dogfight. So yeah, that's a scary situation.
Groups as they approached from the African coast. Lieutenant Muczynski upped their speed to supersonic in order to catch up to the Foxbats as far away from the exercise as possible. As they did, the F-14's distinct variable swept wing automatically engaged, pulling them back to the rear about 20 degrees tilt. As the pair of Tomcats...
Look, man, if MiG-25s realize like they're gonna get chased down and you do the full speed or something, maybe they would have like evaded F-14s or something. I don't know, right? I have to check the numbers or something. But once F-14 has catched up, like that's it. Like no way MiG-25 is gonna be able to fight off F-14s.
Got closer to the incoming MiGs. Friendly EA-6B Prowlers and EP-3 Orions flying nearby began jamming the equipment of the enemy aircraft. Once visual contact was made with the Foxbats, the two F-14s easily swept in behind them. In the back seat of Fast Eagle 107, behind Lieutenant Muczynski, sat his Radar Intercept Officer, or RIO. He's in charge of the weapons and radar. The RIO snapped a few photographs of the closest MiG pilot before giving him the universal hand signal of FU. The incident inspired the Top Gun scene. After the bit of low-level informal diplomacy, the two Foxbats peeled off and returned to base. Muczynski said, quote, "When he lit those huge afterburners on the Foxbat, wow, his motors were huge. He could really move in a straight line, but couldn't do much else." The remainder of the first day of the exercises on April 18th were spent by naval pilots intercepting some 70 Libyan aircraft and pushing them back to land. However, on the next day, the morning of August 19, 1981, the games would become more dangerous. As the Fast Eagle 107 launched off the carrier, it was expected that that day would play out very similar to the first. Not a single shot had been fired the day before. However, the Libyan military saw the first day very differently than their American counterparts. They anticipated that the exercises were actually just a diversion for the United States to prepare for a full-scale attack by carrier group. All Libyan military forces were placed on high alert overnight, and the Libyan Air Force began planning for more aggressive intercept operations the next day. The United States restarted their combat air patrol operations at about 5:45 in the morning, with the same plan as the day prior. The pair decided to start heading back to the carrier when Kleeman, the ROI, detected a single aircraft 80 miles south, close to the coastline, heading in their direction. The F-14s used their AN/AWG-9 radar, very powerful system which could track 24 targets at once and simultaneously engage 6 different aircraft at the same time. The two F-14...
The fuck? Back then? What is this, a video game? How is F-14 that powerful? I didn't know that.
14 Tomcats assumed a loose-deuce formation, with Muczynski climbing to 4,000 feet above Commander Kleeman. The two planned for an eyeball shooter intercept, where Kleeman's aircraft flies directly toward the incoming aircraft, forcing it to turn, and Muczynski would then follow its turn to get behind it. After the F-14s gained visual contact, it was determined that the single radar return was actually a pair of Su-22 fitters flying in such close proximity to each other that they returned as only one radar contact. A radio transmission from one of the fitters was intercepted by a nearby Hawkeye, with the Libyan pilot saying to his wingman that he was preparing to fire one of his missiles at the American F-14 Tomcats. Just prior to the initial merge, the Su-22 fired an air-to-air missile at Kleeman. However, it failed to track due to the close proximity and the impossibly hard turn that it would have had to have pulled. The F-14 can handle up to 7.5 Gs in a tight turn. Anything after that risks breaking the plane apart or the pilots passing out. Kleeman told Commander Muczynski to engage the fitter that fired the missile, while he would engage the rear wingman. The two Libyan aircraft attempted evasive maneuvers. However, the Su-22s are not dedicated intercept fighters. This meant that they were outclassed by the two Tomcats, which quickly turned and positioned themselves on the fitter's tail. And Kleeman's target began flying silhouetting into the sun, which caused him to delay firing as it risked getting a lock on the sun rather than the aircraft.
Oh my god, I'm like, this is so awesome, right? Like proper dogfighting back then, because obviously technology isn't as good as today. In today, dogfighting feels stupid because like, why would you do this? Like too many things. You can just shoot things from far away distance without even getting noticed type of way. Dogfighting is gonna be rare. But back then, right, all these tactics like his fucking movie Top Gun or something, right, using sun to like just to evade shit. That is so awesome.
With his heat-seeking missiles. In the Navy, it's generally considered bad practice to try to blow up the sun with an AIM-9 Sidewinder. After the Su-22 dropped down, Kleeman fired, and the Sidewinder quickly impacted the fitter and destroyed it, forcing the pilot to eject. Tomcats carry 14,500 pounds of munitions or targeting pods. During the 80s, a typical F-14 combat sortie loadout would consist of 2 AIM-54 air-to-air missiles for long-range targets, 2 AIM-9s for short range, 3 AIM-7s for medium, and 700 rounds of gun ammunition for a more personal touch, so it could basically kill anything in the sky 2 times over with ammo to spare.
Yeah, just to sprinkle shit, right? That's Salt guy, Salt Bay or whatever type of shit, right? But by the way, we also have like ammunition, gun. There you go.
His F-14 was still lining up a shot on his target as Kleeman destroyed his. He asked Commander Kleeman if he still wanted to engage the second Su-22. Kleeman responds that's a firm, shoot him down. As Muczynski goes for the shot with his own Sidewinder, it malfunctions and doesn't fire, leaving him with only 1 remaining missile. Shortly after this, his radar failed. The onboard AN/AWG-9 radar, found on the earlier Tomcat models, had a specific mode for dogfighting, which provided short-range rapid target acquisition and lock-on. This mode would be used for short and medium-range engagements, while the longer-range track, while scan mode, would be for the longer-range engagements of the AIM-54 Phoenix rounds. Muczynski still managed to lock with his last missile and fired, as the Libyan pilot pulled a hard starboard turn, forcing both pilots into a 6G maneuver. The F-14 then switched to guns, prepping the 20mm Vulcan cannon to fire. Muczynski's Vulcan was loaded with semi-armor-piercing high-explosive incendiary rounds. These were designed to penetrate the usually thin fuselage of enemy aircraft, then explode immediately after in order to inflict the highest possible damage with a minimal number of rounds. Just as Muczynski lined up his F-14 for the shot, the fired Sidewinder that originally failed to track pulled an insane 45G turn and slammed into the port side of the Su-22, destroying it. Moments after, the Nimitz...
What the fuck? Imagine, even the F-14 guys, what the fuck? Even our missiles have no chill. There you go. Oh, by the way, that's not gonna. Oh my god, it just took a massive turn. There you go. Su-22 is done. Even Americans would be afraid of their own missiles after this. Like, oh, that shit is like, no.
Carrier sent a radio call to the 2 pilots saying 102, 107, you're cleared to defend yourself. Commander Kleeman then called back, and this is 102, 107, 2 enemy kills. From initial radar contact to both Libyan pilots ejecting over the ocean, the entire engagement only lasted 3 minutes and 44 seconds. The 2 destroyed MiGs were the first air-to-air kills since Vietnam, and the first of many for the F-14 Tomcat. For the remainder of the exercise on April 19th, no other Libyan aircraft attempted to engage the American aircraft, not wanting to join their colleagues.
Why, man? But I've said this many times in the past, like, Libya, why go against the US? Like, if you have some kind of like politics ongoing, like create just enough pressure so you can come to a diplomatic table and get something you want type of shit, right? That's a very short-term thing. Rather, it should never go to like engagement level. There shouldn't have been a dogfighting. If you're trying to dogfight, why the fuck are you fighting America? How is that gonna end up well for you? I don't understand that. I don't care how well Libya was military-wise. No way in hell would be even close to America back then, right? Like, I don't even understand that, right? Why would you do this? I've seen many accounts of some small country, but it's like apparently dictator militarized type of country. But then again, you're not going to be close to America in their technology, in their experience. How many wars they've fought, how their navies, how their military is. How is their equipment is, right? They probably spend more in one plane than you're gonna spend in your whole defense budget. How are you gonna fight that back? Why do this shit if it's not for some political gain? It should never come to like engagement like that. It should always be like, okay, do we have each other's attention? Let's talk something type of way, rather than, oh, by the way, I'm keeping to this, I'm gonna fight you. Like, that's not gonna end well for you.
In an impromptu dip in the ocean. There are conflicting reports of whether or not the parachute opened for the Libyan pilots. Gaddafi, although not happy with the loss of 2 aircraft, still pushed for the Gulf of Sidra to be completely under Libyan control and promised to continue to enforce his own territorial claims. Overall, the engagement was proof that the F-14's incredible engineering was up to handle the missions it was designed to fly, and the Tomcat's role would be expanded from strictly a fighter. If you like this video, you'll dig this one on a recent F-18 shootdown of a Syrian fighter jet. I put the link in the corner of the screen for you. I want to dedicate this video to my grandfather, Ray. He worked on the F-14 Tomcat for many years. He helped engineer and design it. And when Northrop Grumman first got the contract, it was a huge deal for my family. It meant that he was able to work in one place as a contractor for Northrop, working on the F-14, so it was life-changing for him, and I probably wouldn't be here without that contract. The F-14 was retired and made its final flight in 2006. But even when we retire and eventually move on, what's really important is the legacy that we leave behind, the lessons that we impart onto the next generation.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, F-14s are like good, but then again, so is F-15, so is F-16, right? Obviously, F-15s are a bit too dominant because the way they were made, right? The projections they had was like America's great at chasing things. That's the one thing. America is not going to have some ambitions like we are targeting this. It's like engineering problem, right? There's a good saying like if you want to give engineers something, tell them their limitation. Don't just go like you have unlimited budget, unlimited things. They'll basically go crazy. Like what the fuck that's supposed to mean? You need to show somebody a limit so they can work around that limit. That's how America works similarly because America has way too much money, way too much scientists and power, R&D and everything. So America needs something to chase basically. So MiG-25 was that thing to chase and they made F-15. Then realized, wait a minute, there wasn't something to chase because that didn't exist. MiG-25 is something completely different. Fine, there you go, F-15. Even today it's dominant. So yeah. Alright, well, that was how US F-14 fighters smoked Su-22s by channel task and purpose. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you next time.